Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the BetTALker podcast. Today we have here Andreas, uh, and I don't think we have met before, but it would be amazing, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit how did you end up doing some work in the safer gambling space.
Thanks for having me, Pedro. My pleasure. And I also think we have not met, at least not met in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did I end up in this gambling and safer gambling space? I think I'm a newcomer still with 5 years in the industry. And before that, I've done completely different things. So I started my career with Deloitte, with a big auditing firm where I was in M&A. And then for almost all of my career, I worked in companies that actually make something like airplanes,
Mhm.
cars, trains, tools. And over the last years, this was mostly about turnaround management. So reviving companies, selling them, that kind of business. And when the then last engagement came to an end, I thought, what could be next? Yep. And when I kept my eyes open, one day I had a talk to a headhunter. And he said, would you be interested in working for an affiliate company? I said, I'm interested in everything, but I don't know yet what an affiliate is. And so we had some good talks. And at that time, iGaming, the company I work for, uh, had some 150 people, had grown rapidly, and they were looking for someone with old economy experience who is supposedly able to structure a company, lead it, more on the leadership than on the technical side. This is how I ended in that company, which is relatively small compared to other companies I've worked for in my career. And what was the final kick was that they said, well, we know that you have an interest in working on the academic path. So I'm a professor at a university. And they said, well, if you can combine that, we work remotely anyhow. That was still the time of COVID. So also academia was remote. Yeah. So I ended up in having two jobs. My main job is, of course, iGaming. The other one is the one as professor.
Mhm.
And one day someone came and said, well, are you interested in teaching ethics? And I said, well, I'm interested, but do you know what company I work for? Because the reputation of this industry is special, to say it
Mhm.
mildly. And yeah, so I ended up in the ethics of gambling. And since I work for someone who solely operates in the licensed market, to be frank, responsible gambling is not only a matter of responsibility, it's also a kind of business model because you need a good reputation as a company to succeed in that market.
Okay, really interesting background. I think sometimes, in the sort of gambling, iGaming, there's a fixation, with previous industry experience. I think sometimes, getting some fresh air,
Mhm.
from people with different backgrounds, sometimes focusing on leadership rather than, being hands-on in the business can be very helpful. I'm interested on the ethics side, and particularly, with affiliates, that at BetBlocker, for example, we have been doing some really good work with Casino Guru, which
Mhm.
is also an affiliate, business, and they're um, more interested than other affiliate companies in safer gambling. They have been a bit
Mhm.
at the forefront, but overall, like the affiliate side, they have a little bit of a bad reputation, in terms of safer gambling. Okay, there's this, crypto casino, there's this sort of casinos non on GameStop, and I always say, look, it's really a miss opportunity, because affiliate is a little bit like a supermarket, okay, those
Mhm.
are, the is safest product, those are all the type of product, I think always, promoting, healthier options,
Mhm.
can be helpful. What are your thoughts, in terms of ethics, affiliates, and the
Uh,
reputational, stuff, that I was mentioning.
it's you are touching a crucial point. When I look at it, we had a lot of discussions and thoughts. How can we, as an affiliate, position ourselves and say we are supporting responsible gambling? Because in the end, we grab people from the internet and send them to an operator who offers gambling. So it's it's challenging because how do I say it? When you have on your own website a section where you promote safer gambling, and 5 clicks later you have something like play here, uh, people ask, what is that? And for me personally, I think people will play anyhow. I I really think it's very hard to stop them from gambling. We can't do that. This is like I say, it's like stopping heartbreak by banning love. It
Mm,
doesn't really work. So our approach is we are the last step before a player that searches on the internet for gambling makes the final jump onto an operator's page. So we try to inform. We, for example, offer a self-test. And if you do not pass the self-test, if this test result is no, no, you should not play today, you cannot make the jump and go play. Of course, you can leave the page, start all over again, but that is something that was important to us. It's also a little bit symbolic. By far, not everyone takes a test. That's
mm,
also clear. But we believe, or I believe, as a CEO of a company, a good reputation of the industry is good for our business, and we can only protect players when they play in the white, in the licensed market.
mm,
So I think we need to find a balance of the attractiveness of the legal market and repression for those who play unfair. And I would say, as long as you do that in a meaningful way, as long as you support limits and the protection mechanisms, it's ethical. If you drive people in the black market, that's not so ethical. In some jurisdictions, like I live in Germany, where channelization is always a big discussion topics. Hard facts and numbers are difficult to get. I've recently been to a conference where somebody presented a research that only 20% play in the licensed market. That means we leave 80% unprotected.
mm.
And that to me is a matter of ethics, not only for the participants who are operators, affiliates also, but also for regulators and lawmakers. So my view is not black and white, there are different aspects, and for many questions I don't have an answer.
It's an important thing. It's a really complex issue. And sometimes there's not a silver bullet. Oh, if we doing this, then it's difficult because sometimes you get a lot of stakeholders,
Mhm,
regulators that they try to solve the problem with a magic bullet somehow, and it's difficult, and I think it's interesting, the German market, because it's different that other markets. For example, I don't know, like the UK, like
mhm,
people that were playing for years and years in the regulated market, before the sort of popularization of the black market. But
mhm.
Germany was a bit like the opposite. You have everybody gambling, you know, in overseas jurisdictions, and then
Yes.
you got the regulated market. So actually, you have to do it the other way around. You need to transition people that they're used to play in the black or
Hmm.
unregulated market. Okay, how do you make more appealing the regulated market?
Yeah, you described an interesting challenge, which I have experienced the switch from, let's say, a gray market in Germany where gambling was not okay in Germany, but according to EU rule it was, and then it was okay in one federal state. So it was a little bit like Wild West. And now the borderline is clear. Either you have a license or you don't. And I have studied business administration.
Mm.
So for me, there are two things. There are people, and that is soft, and there are numbers, that is black and white. And what I see is that since regulation, the tax on online gambling dropped by 70%. Of course, as a German, we have tax for everything. We even have one for specific online virtual games, so we know the numbers. And it's a fact that they dropped by 70%. Do we believe that people play 70% less? I doubt it. So the only solution is either the odds are smaller or they play in the unregulated market. And I'm afraid the business went into the unregulated market.
Okay. Why do you think that the unregulated market is more appealing, for German
Uh,
players?
I would say it's not only what I think, it's even what I know because people have investigated it. And whenever there's a survey and some research, what is the reason why so many people jump over the wall into the unregulated space? It's two things. The biggest business is in slots. In slots, you have a limit of €1 per spin in Germany, and you have to wait 5 minutes between two spins. And that, according to the surveys, is not thrilling enough in terms of the amount for players and not exciting enough because the wait between two spins takes the dynamics out. I'm not saying the solution is to let all that skyrocket, but
Okay.
obviously it seems that to me, especially people who are trending towards addiction, there's a high likelihood that they are the first ones who go to the black market.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I understood correctly. Did you say that people they need to wait how long between two spins?
5 seconds.
Okay, 5 seconds. Sorry, I think
Mhm.
that you say 5 minutes or by
If you
mistake.
said that, then my bad. It's
Okay, okay,
five.
so okay,
So
cool, cool.
if it would be 5 minutes, I think we would not talk about a legal market at all.
Yeah, no, no, it would be like it's like okay, so maybe they have changed the
Yeah,
rules, so maybe I just misunderstood. Okay, it's a bit of a complex issue, because otherwise, okay, you need to have the click and keep the reel spinning for
yes.
longer, so you have but yeah, it
It,
sounds a bit
it, it and
like
it's if I may say that I I when I think what are the mechanics that make people addicted to something in gambling, it's what do they need? They need a relatively high frequency of playing, and they need the excitement of raising the bar, having bigger and bigger amounts. So that to me is, for example, the reason why a lottery is something where people don't usually get addicted to. You have to wait a week, it's a small amount of money, you don't have the dynamics. But if you are in danger, you will always try to have more thrill.
mm,
And once you reach the threshold of this is what I can do in the licensed market, I would say that is the last chance of getting the player back and say, slow down, don't put so much money at stake. And if we don't get them there, they go into the dark side, and we have lost them from the licensed market, I'm afraid.
I mean, I think one of the things that the wall, is very low. It's not even a wall; it's a tiny step. Like anyone, it's very easy to access. you know,
In the it's we are in the age of the internet. When I talk to people, they many of them are not aware if they play with a licensed operator or an unlicensed operator. There are measures, there are ideas that Google does not show advertisements, for example, for operators without license. People find a way around it. So the awareness, if you are in the legal or illegal market, is not everywhere.
and I suppose, because I remember, an operator, that I was talking with, a few months ago. They were saying, oh, during, we're thinking about the campaign, telling the players not to play on the illegal market. First of all, okay, that may raise awareness. Sometimes you advertising something by telling people not to do it. So I'm not entirely sure if this is something that is not is going to work, or is not going to work. Like, okay, don't make your own beer at home. Okay, well, maybe I can make my own beer at home.
Yeah, and it's so I would say in Germany, if you are physically in Germany
Mm,
and play with an unlicensed operator, you commit a crime.
mm,
For you as a person, it's a criminal offense. And some people get messages from the prosecutor these days, especially when they win, because the banks have to report that. And still, it's for you and me, it's an important topic because we are in that business on whatever side. But for most of the population, they find something to play and just play. And what we are discussing here is probably beyond their attention.
I mean, I think, for maybe for someone that is not at risk, okay, may not be aware, for people that maybe they have been, in self exclusion, like, okay, they have registered with
Mm,
Oasis, the
yes.
German self exclusion, and then they may have a relapse, so, okay, I want to gamble. Okay,
Hmm.
they can go on Reddit, or the equivalent in Germany, and okay, I just find how to go around, or I go to an unethical affiliates. Okay, how do I get into this casino? Okay, it's ISP block, or do I need to use a VPN, or do I
Mm,
need to open a crypto wallet so my bank doesn't tell the taxman in Germany, so I don't receive a letter. But many most of the people they're not deterred from doing things because they may be illegal. For example, in the
mm,
US, during the prohibition,
mm.
people were drinking like you know the same, and people sometimes don't stop doing something that they used to do because it's illegal.
Yep. And also, if I may add, so it's also maybe it's a little bit academic, but it's also an ethical and moral discussion. Should we restrict people and tell them in close borders what they are allowed to do? This is a little bit of what the British call a nanny state. Or shall we count on responsibility of people? If they are lucky, life is good for them. If they decide losing their fortune in gambling, bad luck for them. Because if I would gamble online, I would have pretty strict limits. But if I decide to invest a massive amount on the stock exchange or buy crypto, I can do it. And sometimes I say gambling is the speculation on the stock exchange for poor people.
Mm,
If you look at the statistics, who are the people who are addicted? Relatively low education level, low income, young men.
mm,
So I see parallels. And yeah, why do we restrict those? And I think it's important to protect them that they don't do themselves harm. Uh, but on the other hand, people are totally free what they do. So difficult thing, as you also say, the silver bullet. I don't see.
I mean, I do understand, that if someone is in a difficult situation, they may be a bit more vulnerable. Okay, if you have maybe
Yes,
less opportunities in life, to climb
yes.
the social ladder. Okay, I don't
Mhm.
have access to education because universities are very expensive, and I have to work, and the only way out. People may think, okay, this sort of okay, maybe if I win an accumulator, a jackpot, but the reality is that the odds,
Yeah.
it's unlikely. You're very unlikely to beat, you know, probability. Because you were doing some seminals, and I was thinking a little bit about the autobahns in Germany. It's okay.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know how it really works, but many Europeans, we think, okay, you have this where you don't have a speed limit. You can go, you
Yes.
know 250 kilometers.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, why limits for gambling, and you can go, like, very, it's a lot of risk. You can, kill yourself or kill someone else,
Hmm.
in an accident. Okay, you get, a country that seems that this, for some things, is very liberal, but
Hmm.
for gambling, okay, you cannot do more than one spin or go more than, €1 per spin. Okay, like,
Hmm.
it doesn't, you know
I also think it's uh, it's always a matter of causality and correlation.
mm,
However, when I look into some regimes like Spain, for example, the limits are higher than they are in Germany. Numbers are not so solid, but I don't really see that the lower the limits are, the lower the addiction or or the higher the channelization is. And to me, we are talking about limits all the time. I think that's not the main driver to keep people away from harm. And I have recently found an interesting example, which I used at a keynote. We had a player in Germany. He made it to the news. He lost 800,000 euros online,
mhm,
and it took him 13 years or so.
mhm,
And then I read a comment, damn, we need a better regulation, and the limits are too high. Then I did the math. In Germany, you can uh, deposit 1,000 euros per month.
mhm,
So it takes you 66 years to lose 800,000.
mhm,
And the reaction after that made the news was, hey, let's reduce the limits to 500 instead of 1,000.
mhm,
The result is you can play 132 years. I think the handle is a different one. Many people play in order to overcome issues in their life,
mhm,
fear. They are afraid of their job, they are unhappy, the partner left them, things like that. Then you gamble to be distracted. So I think the handle is mindset, is psychological happiness that you have
mhm,
to work on. I have big doubts that you can regulate that. No, I think that's almost impossible.
mhm.
But my other doubt is if with setting a border that is counted in euros, dollars, or pounds, if that is it's a good intention, but I doubt that it practically works the way it's applied in
Yeah,
many
look,
regimes.
I truly believe, that regulators, they mean well, and they, but sometimes I think
Absolutely, yes.
is underlying the underlying cause, what it, you know it drives someone to have an addictive behavior, as you say,
Mm,
being unhappy, being depressed, anxiety. Of course, operators in the past, they could have behaved more ethically, and maybe, the advertisement could have been different, and all of that. So no one is the same, but
mm,
there's a lot of underlying issues. I say, okay, maybe we can educate people better. Okay, this is something that is going to take us 10 years, so maybe we can make more
mhm,
accessible, uh, you know mental health therapies, rather
Yes.
than medicating people. Okay, if you're unhappy, it's for a reason. So a tablet is not going to change
Mhm.
your work. Okay, maybe you need to make a decision. Okay, I'm not happy. This job make me really anxious. And I'm not going to win a jackpot. I'm very
Mhm.
unlucky to win a jackpot. I'm going to get in debt. Okay, it's fine if you just say, okay, I just play for 1 hour because I want to have fun. That I want to make rich, so I can leave my job in the factory. Okay, maybe or creating the social mobility, so people
Mhm.
they can get into a better place. I don't know. I think it's a very difficult, you know, complex problem, and we need complex solution rather than.
Yep. So when I look at statistics, the type of gambling where you have the highest rate of problem gamblers is online slots. So it's much higher than land-based things, of course, much higher than lottery because the frequency is lower and even slightly higher than sports betting. But to me, one of the unique things is you play alone. 90% of gambling online is alone with a smartphone. You don't have social control. And you play in a market where, at least in my society, you are not proud of. You don't go out and say, "Hey, I'm gambling online." You keep that under the carpet. And
Okay.
sometimes I feel it's like the attractiveness of a forbidden fruit. Uh, my feeling is that in societies where it's more socially accepted that you gamble, the problems tend to be a little less.
Okay,
But
look.
you are well versed in many jurisdictions. We live in different countries. So do you have a view on if this forbidden fruit effect is influencing them? You are a behavioral scientist, so I'm always humble when I talk to people with your education.
I mean, my take is it depends. Again, it's not that clear cut. For example, I think maybe in some places there's a hyper normalization. And
Hmm.
then okay, it's something that you know people just do. And then in other places, okay, maybe you have a stigma. you
Hmm.
know and the stigma, okay, it prevent people to talk about stuff. So it becomes something that snowball. For example, if you know you're going through divorce, and you're going to the pub a bit too much, and you're talking with friends, oh, I'm going to the pub too much, I just feel really down. Maybe they say, oh, maybe you can, we can go and play football together, or go to the gym, or maybe you need to talk with someone. But normally, because of the stigma, what you're saying, you're not going to tell to a friend, oh, I'm gambling too much, things are getting a bit of fun, because probably people, they may not be as compassionate or sympathetic. They probably say, okay, just stop gambling, or so the thing, is about, you know, education. I don't think, I think what it does, when something is a bit stigmatized, is that the the people, they don't tend to seek help, or they feel that
Yes.
it's a moral flaw, there's something wrong with me, rather than say, look, I'm going through a really difficult situation. Okay, there's people that they drink, there's people that they play all the time video games, there's people that they watch porn to get their
Mhm.
mind away. And unfortunately for me, I'm gambling, and I need help. So you know people, they don't seek help when they feel
Yes.
that there's a moral flaw. And that's sad, because I believe that, look, if you're going through a difficult time in your life, and you're doing something to feel better, I don't think that this sort of moral, burden should stop you from seeking help. How is Germany in terms of, because you say something, a forbidden fruit, because you see some stats, or when they talk about the market, okay, it's something that it seems like, you know it's popular, but no one talks about it.
Hmm.
Maybe Could you tell me a little bit more? You must know quite well the German
It,
marketing, or in
yes,
terms of stigma, or what people think, or different generations.
I would you bring up a good point. First of all, gambling is stigmatized. I'm absolutely sure it's something where people raise an eyebrow and say, yeah, it's not okay. You shouldn't do it. And yeah, if we cannot stop it completely, we regulate it closely. Uh, I think to a certain extent to push it to the side, not so much to help the people, but to get it out of the side. And that means talking about it, as you say, I'm a gambler, very difficult. Um, when we look into different generations, um, I have the feeling that gambling is pretty much accepted about the young generation, say Gen Z. But in a way, it's perceived as entertainment. When I talk to the young people, it's not so much I want to win a fortune and get a bonus and this and that. It's for many I talk to, it's the feeling it's like going to the movies or the restaurant. I spend 50 euros, I'm entertained for 2 hours, then the money will be gone, and I do something else. And many of the young guys, they play it in groups when they are sitting there. They put it on a big TV screen and follow it, and it's really this entertainment style. Um, and the other big group that plays are people, mid-aged people in their 40s, maybe with a family that need easy entertainment. You just log on and you play a little bit because you don't find a babysitter for the two kids if you want to go out. So these are the main groups. But overall, in politics, we have 16 federal states. Some honestly say, well, people gamble anyhow. Let's take the tax money. That's fine. And others state, better stop it completely. And that also ends up in a kind of a stalemate when you have to bring 16 states under one umbrella and you don't have a unanimous decision, you have no decision. That
Mhm.
slows everything down. And in terms of the reputation that you say, a politician doesn't want to touch it.
Mhm.
So, do you want to be in the news? Hey, I'm Pedro, I'm the prime minister of a country and I've doubled gambling. That's not what you want to be. So that's the kind. I would say the reputation is bad. You have a lot of institutions, some banks who say ESG wise, we just don't work with that industry, and all that pushes it aside. Same like defense industry for a long time. Now suddenly it's on the rise.
I mean, you know, personally, I'm a bit of a liberal person. Look, I
Mm,
just think that, okay, people should be allowed, they should be informed of the risk, but I think, like, forbidding, is not the way forward. I just think people, they need to make their own decisions. Okay, if you eat, you can go to the supermarket, buy 2 bags of sugar, and if you eat them, probably,
yes.
you'll end up in a coma, or something like that. But people don't do it because they say, okay, look, this is
I
dangerous.
yeah.
Or drink a liter of bleach. Okay, it's in the
Mm,
supermarket, you don't need to be a chemist, to buy it. But you know you know people know that, okay, what to do, and I just think, that level of awareness, I think, you know a lot of people, they still think that, it's a way to earn money, rather than, as you say, entertainment. Look,
mm.
I'm going to lose this money. If I enjoy the process of losing this money slowly, with the very, very small chance that it will be more, but, you know, it's out of my head, I'm just paying for the entertainment. That's fine. I think that's probably the right approach. It's really interesting, that you mentioned, that younger generations, that they just plug it, the or the phone. They just put it on the big screen with AirPlay or
Hmm.
whatever, and they play. Because I remember, when I work in Malta, I had like a lot of young employees, that they were working in the gambling industry. I say, "Hey, guys, what do you do?" And so, normally at the end of the month, when we're all a bit skinned, so we
Hmm.
put all a tenner, and go to someone's house and bring some beers.
Yeah.
We just put it in auto spin, and if we
Hmm.
get, some extra money, then we stop, we withdraw, and go for dinner or party or whatever. It
Hmm.
sounds a bit healthy. But at the same time, I had a couple of cases of employees, that, things they spin a little bit out of control. Okay, young people, sometimes, they could, they may be lonely in a country that is not
Hmm.
theirs. They may know how to seek help. There's also the stigma, if you work in the gambling industry and you develop a gambling problem, maybe you become a bit of a toxic person, so it's tough, so I do understand, that okay, it can be something that's healthy, but also with young people that we need that education. And Andreas, I wanted to ask you, okay, apart from the sort of self assessment questionnaire, what else are you doing, in your company, to make sure that, okay, you promote, safer gambling, ethical values, and all these sort of
We, we,
positive
we,
things.
we try to educate people. So we show them on our pages what are the steps that keep you out of trouble. Uh, our game is we send players to operators where they deposit. That means we must attract players who are not already with an operator and constantly playing. So we have the chance to get those who are about to begin. And we tell them set limits, talk to your friends, don't do it secretly. So all these things that are helpful, that you have social control, self-control, we provide information. And we do talks like this. When I talk about a person who lost 800,000, it's a drama.
Mhm,
You ruin people.
mhm,
And so we educate, we tell them what can happen. But in the end, I'm a liberal person. I'm similar like you describe. It's each person's responsibility. I strongly believe it's our responsibility of an actor in the market to make people aware. Can we technically stop them from gambling? No. And to be honest, we don't want to forbid it. We make our company money with that. And to me, one thing that is interesting is that many people think they themselves are not vulnerable, but others have to be protected.
mhm,
And this awareness that you can easily go into this spiral and lose your self control. We try to communicate that and give some hints how you notice and what you can do. And I would like to give one example of
mhm,
this. Am I in danger or is everyone else in danger? I recently had a seminar at a university where students talked about gambling harm.
mhm,
And they did a presentation that was combined with a survey. It was a relatively big class. And in class, they asked, dear class, should online gambling be completely forbidden and stopped? Guess how many students said, yes, let's stop it. Let's take it from the surface of the earth. 75%
uh,
in an ethics course.
mm,
The second question was, have you gambled for money online in the last 30 days? Also 75% said, yes, I did. So that means while you say it's bad, you have to protect the others, you say, yeah, but I will be okay. And that to me is an important message that you deliver. If you lose self control, You might think you are okay today, but once you are going down the drain and you don't talk to anyone, there's
Mm.
nothing that stops you.
I think there's also a bit of an issue on the way, you know, problematic gambling
Mhm.
or is portrayed, because sometimes, like ads, campaigns, they sort of, even movies and all of that, sometimes I feel like they portray, a bit like a caricature of the gambler, of a person that is
Yes.
experiencing gambling harm. It's a bit like, okay, most of the people that they, have a problem with drinking, okay, most of them, they're not like asking for money outside of a supermarket, or
Hmm.
people that they have problem with substances. It's not like, a junkie in an alley with a knife. You may have a job. So because, sometimes, the person that is experiencing, gambling related harm, it's a bit like, make a bit of a archetype, a bit of a caricature. People, they don't consider, well, I don't have a problem because I'm not with the, extreme end of harm. Sometimes this sort of thing is okay. Like, we need to change a little bit the conversation. Okay, you don't need to lose
Hmm.
800,000, to
Hmm.
be a person that is affected by gambling related harm. Okay, maybe you lose 1,000, but that's the money that you had for your uh, studies, to pay for the flat this month, and then you stop studying medicine because your landlord kicked you out and you need to go back to your parents' house. Okay, that's a drama that is going to affect you by the rest of your life. But oh well, it's only 1,000, and it's like, okay,
Yes.
it's a bit of the context. I just feel sometimes that, okay, we only got these extreme cases, or people that they go to jail because they stole $1 million, and it's like, okay,
Hmm.
there's also a person that, you know they may have lost the job, because they were playing until really late. They were
Hmm.
not focusing, they were tired, and it can be uh, a tragedy. And people, okay, I don't have a problem because I'm not in that deep end. I just think that things would be, easier if they were a little bit more normalized. Like the same that, you get people asking for help, at early stages. Like, okay, I'm feeling not feeling great, or maybe I need help, or maybe I need some counseling, or there's stuff going on in my life. Gambling is one of them, rather than let it fester, for a very, very long time.
Yes, you are
uh,
mentioning a super interesting point. 50 euros a month can be too much. And for others, maybe much bigger amounts don't matter. And I think one of the issues is you do not notice for a long time when people are gambling addicts. Money is not visible. If you are a drinker, people might smell your breath. Or if you take something else, people might see that you had a syringe in your arm, or all of that. But gambling, as long as you can handle it, or even if you have a big account of money, it can take forever and you will be ruined. It'll just go away. And as you say, that could be the studying money for your children, all of that. That's drama way before you lose your job and all of that. So um, that's the one thing. The other thing is what happens if you stop someone from one problem? So, as I said initially, very often gambling is an escape from personal problems, fears, and concerns. So, if you manage to stop someone from gambling, like blocking, I've seen research where you have a high percentage of people who then fall into drinking or do something else to have this compensation and escape or cover their issues. And that leads me back to the thought we have to identify the people, we have to talk to them, and to identify them, the best way is they raise a hand and say, I have a problem. And the more in the dark that is, the worse the reputation of that is. I think that does not really contribute to the willingness to make yourself public. Uh, And again, how do you want to do it? And that might be to make the reputation of gambling a little bit better. And for that, you cannot have an industry of black sheep. It also doesn't help to tell the world how bad it is, because I meet people in this industry where I would say they are good guys, but I also meet the others. Against them, you have to be protected.
I found that really really interesting in the sense, for example, in my experience, some companies, they have been very apprehensive to talk about, okay, gambling harm. Oh no, let's not talk about that, because, and it's like, okay, look, it's important, to be open to say, look, there's a percentage of people that develop a problematic relationship with gambling. Okay, it happened, with
Mhm,
other things, from people that drink. Okay, you have a higher percentage of people that they have a problematic relationship
mhm,
with drinking. And it's like, seek help. You're not the only one. Okay, so if you have a car, you're likely at some point to be involved with on an accident. And
mhm,
yeah, it's like, look, this is something that it can happen. It's very likely. This is how we prevent it. This is how we seek for help. How is the situation in Germany in terms of seeking support when someone has some mental health problem? For example, if you're depressed or if you feel really bad anxiety, uh, do people have access to talking therapies or to get some help, or is still stigmatized, mental health?
So there is an abundance of offerings, psychologists, psychiatrists, institutions, communities that help. So we have researched it thoroughly on our in order to start our website. There's basically in every town, every small town, you will have a chance to physically go there. Not to speak of I can have phone access and have a video conference. It's all there. The biggest hurdle is to get in to connect the help and the person who needs help. It's this I'm in a cage. I don't want to talk about it. And yeah, things happen before. So if you run out of money, you are in trouble with your bank. If you run out of money, you have to reduce the lifestyle of your family. But that still doesn't force you to ask for help. And there are also some ideas to connect players that they do not play completely alone, that you have some kind of social contact. Personally, I think if you would sit with three or four people and play cards, and you constantly run out of money, somebody might tell you when you are a friend what's going on with you. When you are sitting in front of a smartphone, nobody will tell you. There are algorithms for problematic gamble, which is fantastic. I hope that the results are good, but you still need to be blocked or block yourself. And then I see some people go into the black market instead of waiting to be unblocked. So, all in all, yes, help is available. Also, we have a health system where you do not have to pay that out of your pocket. It's connecting and doing the first step. And I think the first step has to be done by the person with a problem. And that is the challenge. How do you get out of the swamp and say, I need help?
This, it's a really, big point that is, okay, there's a lot of time that, people, okay, you cannot play anymore because the algorithm has the tech. But I think sometimes it's the way, we interact with the with the person. A lot of times, when I had my teams, because I used to work in the gambling industry, I normally train them on motivational interviewing,
Hmm.
or when I have delivered training for other operators, you'll be like, look, if you just uh, okay, it's flagged by the system, and we don't want the risk. Let's send them an email and tell them that, okay, we're no longer having you as a customer because you're at risk. Go and seek help. Most of the time, that's not very helpful. Because the person feels exploited, and
Hmm.
then okay, we don't want to deal with you. And actually, if the person is not um, determined, or they don't have the insight that actually they may need help, you know they probably will just go to another casino. Actually, any casino will give them money to
Hmm.
open an account and make a deposit. So it's a bit like, okay, you need to speak with the person. You need to help them to make an informed decision, rather than, okay, here there's some information, read it if you want. Probably they're going to be angry with you, and they're just going to press delete.
But I would also talk about an example where I saw a positive development. I had a chance to attend the SNUS conference. It's all the Scandinavian
Yeah.
countries, and there's hardly anyone from the industry, but all the brain from academia and player protection. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but somebody who was in one of the big state-owned lotteries casinos, they do this detection with algorithms or AI, and then they write letters to people. They follow up. If they don't answer to the letters, they call them. So they do a lot of things. And if I'm not mistaken, it was 60-70% of people they got in touch with. So they could really talk to them.
Mhm.
Yes, they had a certain rate of people that listened, acted, and a few months later were back in trouble.
Mhm.
But overall, this was super encouraging and underlines what we are discussing. You have to get into communication,
Mhm.
and it's it's hard work. And they say, hey, we have to call him 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Eventually, that person picks up when it did not respond to an email. And then the percentage of people who change something and are attentive, that was, I don't remember the number, but it's extremely high. So it's possible, and that is encouraging.
I, I have read the study. I don't remember the numbers on top of my head either, but remember, okay, they were sending like a physical letter, and it's like, I mean, like nowadays, you receive a letter, it's like, oh look,
Oh,
what's in,
normally I have not paid my tax. Yeah.
yeah, or something. It's something that have some
Yes.
relevance, because you get an email and it's like delete,
Hmm.
or spam, because you get
Hmm.
like a lot of them a day. But if you get a letter, okay, you're likely to have a read. It's a transactional object. Is something that is physical, and then you have someone that talks to you and all that. And I think it's something that it's an investment, because if you don't take care of your customers, and you say, oh, like all these safer gambling things in is an expense. The reality is that the person is going to develop a problem, and then they're going to be resentful. You're going to pay a reputational price. You're going to pay
Exactly.
a political price. You're going to pay a regulatory price. You're going to pay a black market price. And it's like, look, I always, investing in safer gambling is investing in sustainability, and you need to listen to your
Yes.
staff.
And we talked about dilemmas. I think for somebody who is doing business in the legal market, investing into safer gambling is a must because in the end, it's good for your business. You can say, yes, I have and it's about my reputation. It's about ethics. Whatever the reason is, anyone who does a reasonable project in that area, either driven by business thoughts or ethical thoughts, it helps. It helps everyone. And the one who needs most help is the player who is standing in front of this wall. Do I stop or do I go where the drama begins, the illegal market? If I run out of money, I start committing crimes or taking money from my family. It's worth it.
Andreas, we're getting close to the hour. Uh, is there something that we haven't talked about that you say, oh, this is really important? I wanted to touch on this point.
Nothing that comes to my mind looking at our conversation. I, I think the key is with only repressive actions, we will not stop gambling harm. I think it's getting in touch with people and just do it. If you make it too scientific and things, when how do I identify them? Just get going. I think every player that is aware is one chance more that we have less drama.
Hmm. So thank you very much for being with us today, and have been an absolute pleasure. Mm.
Has been my pleasure, Pedro. Thanks for reaching out. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.